got on the bench a Cervantes hybrid model. So this is supposed to be like a player-friendly classical guitar. It has a narrow nut, 50 millimeters, just a little bit easier to play. Compensated nut and a compensated saddle, and the owner added this over the bridge pickup here. Interesting. The owner wants this set up, and he bought it and restrung and have been playing for a while, never got it set up. Here's something curious that he hadn't noticed, but as I looked at it a little bit, it was, you can't really unsee it. So the compensated nut, really cool feature. As you're going down the neck, notice the string spacing as it relates to the edge of the fretboard. It gets, see how much space there's in here, almost no space here. I talked to the owner, he didn't really have any complaints about this. As you get lower down the neck, look how crazy. There's about a finger or half of a finger or something from the edge here, and no space here. When you get to the tie block here, this is a 12-hole tie block, and this is just strung up wrong. So this string here should have go into this hole here, and he did the opposite. You can see how the nut, I don't know if you can pick it up on camera, but yeah, there you go. The nut compensation here, this string is not going over it, so this string should have been going over here on this side here. So I'm gonna have to shift everything and then set up the guitar. Honest mistake, but yeah, it's very easy to notice if you know what you're looking for, right? So these strings all need to be shifted that way. The guitar need to be strung up properly, and that will fix the intonation issues as well. This guitar also has a truss rod, which is pretty uncommon with classical guitars. So I'm gonna start by restringing this guitar. There's also very little relief, almost no relief to the neck, which creates a lot of buzzing. And this should be a pretty straightforward thing to set up. He wants to keep this pickup here. I don't know what kind of consequences it comes, because it's right at the tie block. It should be pretty straightforward. I don't know what kind of wood this is, but the strings are basically digging into it. So I might suggest to do something with this pickup. Maybe it needs to be finished. Maybe a little bug here in my workshop. Maybe, I don't really know, but he wants to keep it, so I'm gonna keep it. This string here, put some grooves on it, so when I change the configuration of the strings, because this string now has to go through this hole here instead of the other one, so everything will be shifted that way. We'll see how that will change things. So here it is, a Cervantes hybrid model. I call it Avant-Garde crossover one. This one has Indian rosewood on the back and sides, and a cedar top. Really nice, cool rosette, and solid top. I believe solid sides and back as well. So I'll close up here on what I mean. There are 2 holes in the front, 2 holes in the back. You see that the string is going through this outside hole here first, and it's backwards. It should be entering through the other hole for the proper alignment of the strings with the fretboard, and to go over the compensation, the right compensation in the saddle. So I'm gonna remove it here. I like to, when guitars come to me, I like to use the old strings to do just this preliminary setup, and then to make sure everything is okay, and then I remove the strings put new ones in, and then do the final setup with it, clean it up and everything. I don't like to be going back and forth with the new strings because sometimes they get marred. And so here it is, the string went through the hole. I'm gonna go all the way back here and through the second hole here, if it will allow me. There you go. And then it goes into the little loop here, and then now I can pull this, and this is the proper way to restring at least this guitar. And I'm gonna have to do this with every one of these strings here, and then I'll show you what that does to the string spacing at the fretboard here after. Another observation here is when it comes to tying the strings here at the bridge and at the headstock as well. So some people like to tie these knots. You see this one is kind of curled around here. There are different ways of doing it so the string won't slip here, and especially here if you can see the first three bass strings there. And this is not a final string on my part. Like I said, these are the old strings that I'm going to remove later, but they're just sort of tucked in there, right? And you can see the first two, which I haven't touched yet here. There, the nylon, there's all kinds of knots there, which does stop some of the slipping. I don't think that it's necessary. People do things in a different way. It does make it a pain to restring, but yeah, I think as long as they're secured here at the bridge and up here, you're good to go, and you should avoid tons of knots and all that. With that being said, nylon strings are different than steel strings, right? They take longer to stretch. They do slip a little bit when they're tied, so they take a little bit more time to settle when you restring it. So I think that's why people feel the need, or I know that's why they feel the need to be tying knots and all that to secure it in place. Here's how I like to restring these plain nylon strings at the headstock. Now I don't have a lot of string to work with. These are the old strings, so it makes it a little difficult, but I'll thread the string through. I'll pull it through the hole there, and I'll make a loop and re-thread the string from the back. See if I can make this happen here. It's difficult when there's no string left, but here it is. And then now I have a loop on the back there that I can insert this little tail through. And then I'll pull the top string here to tighten it up, and sometimes I'll even bring the string through again, and now I'll tie. So with the outside string, especially with the E and the B and the low A and the low E, I can set the string on the nut here so that the path of the string coming off the nut is somewhat straight. It's hard to do it with the middle two strings here just because of the nature of the peg head. I also like to go on top of that little tail just to secure it there. I don't have enough string here that will work very well, but and then I'll tighten it, and the string will lock itself there and it won't be a pain to restring later. This is much easier when you have the full length of the string. This one has been clipped, but it does stop the slipping, and it works pretty well in my opinion. And here's the initial result, what it did to the alignment of the string with the fretboard. Everything is centered. There is a little bit of space on the outside here, a little bit of space here. People, have different thoughts on how much space, but about a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, maybe an 1/8 of an inch up here, and a little bit more as it goes down. But it's just so the string won't slip out when you're playing, or slip out this way. And here is things at the tie block. It's not really neat right now, once more. These are the old strings, but I'm gonna do an initial setup with them, and they're going properly over the compensation of the nut. You see the little notch here, little notch here, a little notch there, little notch here, and before they were not going over properly. So I'm gonna continue, I'm gonna go on with this guitar, set it up somewhat, and then change the strings, or take these strings off, clean it up well, and do a final setup. Now here's a problem. I'm measuring the height of the nut here. I added some relief to the neck. It had almost no relief. This one has a truss rod, so it makes it easier. I have the guitar capled at the 3rd fret here, which brings this string to rest on the 2nd fret. And what I'm trying to measure here is the height at the nut. The way I measure, there should be some clearance here. So when I depress the string, you should see some movement, and you see there's almost, I'm trying to get a good camera angle here, but you can hear a slight clicking, but there's almost nothing going on at all of these strings, which means this nut is too low. I could hear it when I played with the string open, because it rattles a little bit at the 1st fret. So you want to have some space between here. How much? People have different theories. Some people measure with a gauge, which I think it's good, it's scientific. Most people I've studied and talked to, they just do this test, right? They capo at the 3rd fret, or they just hold the string down. I usually just hold the string down. I capo because I'm filming now, and they should see some. Now there's very little. You can usually see by the shadow there that there's very little movement. Some people like to do the noise test. In my opinion, it's too low, and my final test is to hear the string open, and if it rattles, there's definitely no movement on the 3rd, or on the D string here, the 4th string. And as I go down the neck, I see that most of them are not moving. There's some movement here at the E and at the A. No movement at the D. So this nut is too low. My options are making a new nut, fill in the slots with, bone powder and super glue, which has its issues, or shimming the nut. I have to look a little closer. It does look like there's already a shim under this nut. So I'm gonna pull the nut out, see what's going on under there, add a shim, talk to the customer, and go from there. Okay, so let's see what's under this nut. These are usually not glued in, they're just pressure fitted. So no shim under. The problem with making a new nut is that this is a compensated nut, right? So you can see the notches here for alleged proper intonation. I'm gonna check the intonation after, but that's why people compensate the nut and the saddle to perfect how the guitar plays up and down the neck. So this looks to be it's machined. You can really see the grooves here, and intonation changes depending on how much relief there's on the neck, the type of strings, the material of the strings. Not all nylon is exactly the same, so having like a set it and forget it sort of approach, like a factory approach to compensating on and saddle, it gets you close, but it's never going to be perfect anyway. And the best is to hand adjust these, but I'm not going to start messing with compensating nuts and all that, making a new nut, making a new saddle. This is just in for a proper setup. We'll see what happens once I string it up with the new strings. If it is off by a lot, I'll call the client and say, look, you know, we need to do some more extensive work here, but this should be close enough. Now the height isn't, so I'm gonna add a little shim here, something that can be removed, so I'm not gonna glue it in, and talk to the client and tell him why I did what I did, and if he doesn't like it, I can just remove the shim. All right, so upon further inspection, look what I found. There was a little piece of material here that peeled off, and there's still some in here, under here, which leads me to believe that that used to be a shim under here, a paper shim. This could be glue as well, but it does not look like just simple glue. It's hard to tell. So originally shimmed from the factory, likely. Here's some more coming off. A paper shim, which is not the best, but I'll add a very slight shim to it and see what it does to the nut height. Now let's talk about shims for a second here. So ideally this nut would have been high enough, right? And then you have bone going on wood here, good contact. That's not the case. I can make a new nut, and that's gonna take much longer. I have to compensate it properly. Here is the wrong side. The nut should be in like this. The neck is made of cedar, right? So I can use some cedar, a cedar shim. People use paper or, you know, bone. I could attach a new piece of bone here. But wood is fair game. I feel the neck is made of wood, so here I have some curls of cedar. So I've been building a guitar and I have a bunch of cedar curls that I've been playing with. Here it is, a nice curl. This one might be too thin, and what I do is I'll go in with my caliper and I measure just the thickness. This is at 2.5 thou. It's a bit too thin, I feel. Time will tell. This one is a bit thicker, about 4 thou here. I'll probably use something like this and see how the nut reacts, right? Here's another one, 6.5. So I have some options here. This is so thin, right? It might as well be paper. I can saturate this with super glue if I like it. If I wanted to. I'm probably not going to. I'm just going to have it under the loose under the nut and see what happens. If I want to glue it, I can do it later, but I want to be able to test a couple of thicknesses to see what it does to the final nut height. So let's start with a thicker one, and I can always move down. I'm gonna cut this to size now. It's a bit tricky. This is so thin that kind of when you cut in along the grain, it wants to split. So I'm gonna very carefully mark with my X-Acto knife here and try to get the right mark without messing with the grain. So here it is, pretty good. See how it splits. I'm gonna add this shim to the nut and see what it does. This is a 6 thou, I believe, shim. Let's measure it one more time here. Four thou. So let's start with that and see what it does. So shim added, you can barely see it. It gets confused with the actual grain and the wood of the neck. So that's great. Somebody that doesn't know that a shim is there will probably not even notice. And let's see what it did to the nut height. So same test. It's probably pretty hard to see, but now there's movement. If I press it, the noise is there. If you take a look at the shadow there, you can probably see it a bit better. Same thing here. Same thing here. So I'm happy with this. The 4th shim did it. Not a lot of effort. Non-invasive, non-permanent thing. But as long as the nut is in there, the pressure will keep it. Will keep the shim there. And the guitar is better now. Let's take a look inside this this guitar. Seems to me like a well-built, very interesting guitar, and surprise, surprise, it's lattice braced. Pretty cool. Not very traditional bracing pattern. As far as I know, Small Man from Australia is the luthier responsible for this type of bracing. You see the cedar linings here. A cool feature. Usually see curved lining in a lot of these factory made guitars. Spruce bracing on the back. You see the heel here with the Spanish foot. Solid rosewood back and sides, so pretty cool. The guitar plays well. It seems to be well built. Sorry about the shaky camera work here. The endoscope camera is kind of hard to maneuver. And the lattice, the braces are scalloped as well, which is interesting. Cedar top. And that's about it. So here's another look of how to restring. It's much easier when you have the full length of the string here. So in through the hole, back into the hole, make a little loop, adjust so there isn't a lot of slack here. You have the little loop there now, shove it through, and now you can adjust here, and you see how the loop tightens itself. And then now I'm gonna go and start stringing here, or start winding. And since the nut, let me adjust my angle a little bit here. You see the nut is here. I want the string path not to go inwards like this or outwards like this. I want to go straight into the peg head. So I'll adjust it there, and I like to even tuck, make that first pass there go over the string, so it locks it in place there a little bit better. And then I start winding here, and then I'm gonna let this string stretch. There's gonna be a bunch of windings here. If I have to adjust here, I'll adjust it, and let the string settle after I bring it up to pitch, and cut it. So a little insight on the life of a repairman. As I'm stringing this up, I look at this peg and look what's going on here. It's broken, right? It's an ebony peg. So what do? Right, I start looking around my shop for the little piece. Start wondering if I had done this, if I, somehow caused this. And then, you start thinking about what the client will say, if they'll be mad, and that sort of thing. And I was just about to call him, and I decided to look in the case, and inside the little compartment, here it is, the little piece. So I'm gonna call him. Obviously he's aware of this. This happened before this guitar came to me, but kind of a tricky situation. I didn't notice this before, and now all of a sudden. So but I think that he'll be happy that I found a little piece, and then I'm going to fix this for him. So here's what I do on the tail block here. You see I did have to tie a little knot on the high E string. It was slipping. I think it's mostly because of this pickup on top, but nice and neat. All the strings are tucked, strung up properly. We can see here the path of the strings now are good over the fretboard. And I still have some work to do up there, do the final setup, clip the strings and all that, but looking pretty good. I'm ready to glue my little piece here. I'm gonna use hide glue. I don't see a reason not to. It is a little bit more work. You have to heat the glue up and all that, but it's such a great glue. And if this glue up doesn't go well, it's a tiny little piece, but it's kind of hard to get it in place. I don't really see a good way to clamp it because of the rounded bottom here of the tuner. So I'm just gonna do a rub joint, and if it doesn't go well, I can heat it up and redo it. So here we go. I was gonna get my little piece out here. Get a little bit of glue here. Make sure it's in place, and just hold it here for a second. Should be fine, making sure it's not gonna stick to my finger here. You can see the squeeze out. I'm gonna have to just hold this for a while, so it looks like it's perfect there. Here's the final result. The guitar is clean, strung up. The peg is glued. I still have to polish it up a little bit. There's a little piece missing. I'm gonna have to wait for this glue to dry, but good nut height. The height here in the 12th fret is about 3.5 on the bass and 3 on the treble, which is a bit on the low side. This is obviously a subjective preference on the player, but given this is like a hybrid instrument, it's a classical guitar that has these flavors of steel string guitars, a truss rod, the cutaway, a narrow nut, and the player himself really likes this guitar, and he liked the height as it was before, so I didn't mess too much with it. The height at the bridge here is at 10 millimeters and 9.5 over here, which is also within range, but a little bit on the low side, which affects the torque on the bridge. But the guitar is done. Let's see what he has to say about it once he picks it up, and that's it. Okay, so I lied about being done with this guitar. I couldn't just let the ebony tuning peg be. I've removed from the shaft here, and I'm gonna do some work to it. You see that it's glued together now. I still have to sand it and stuff like that, because there's the glue line. There's a little piece missing, so when the client told me that he was winding this with an electronic winder, and it cracked. So that little piece there I have here, this is an old cello fretboard. I have another piece of ebony here, which is it has knots and it's kind of curly, so I can't use it for fretboards. This side here, somewhere here, it's going to be a head plate, but there's stuff like that. So I did what I thought I should do, which is I grabbed a piece, and with two different knives here, I carved a tip, and the underside of it is beveled, if you can see, and it should fit. It fits really well in there. Let me get to a better light here so you can see. So let's try this again. It fits just about perfect in here. And I took great care in making sure it fits. I'm gonna glue this with hide glue, so light is tricky, and do a good job with this other than leaving it like that. Now, you know, this is one of those things. I set up the guitar and did all the work on it. I gave him a price, gave the client a price, and you know, he didn't say go ahead and spend an extra hour or two fixing this peg. So I took it upon myself to do that, and that you know, it cuts into my hourly rate basically. But this really bothers me. I don't want to leave it like this. It's probably not the best move economically, but he's gonna get a good guitar back, and hopefully this will turn into, you know, we're just kind of going above and beyond here to make a client happy. Maybe he'll bring me another guitar in the future or something like that, or maybe he won't, so I'll just have to live with it. But you know, I own my own business. I don't have a boss to answer to, or you know, I do. I'm the boss, and I suffer the consequences one way or the other. And I think that the consequences of not doing good work with stuff like this that bothers me are worse than the consequences of working an extra hour to get something done properly. And that's the decision I'm making. I cut a little wedge, and I'm gonna glue it and fix this properly. And here is the glue up. I didn't film the glue up, but this is kind of a delicate operation. But you see the little wedges going in there. It's hard to see because it's black on black, but there's a little clamp here. Here's my little glue pot. I don't have the pot on there. This is just quick work here. Here's the consistency of my hide glue. Oops. I'm gonna let this dry, chop this little thing off, and start filling in the gaps with some ebony dust and some super glue, and some very thin super glue. And then I'm gonna put this back on the guitar. Here's the result after gluing in the wedge and fixing everything, both sides. Shellacked it slightly. You know, it's not a new tuning peg, so I'm not gonna shine this up like it is new. Ebony is fairly forgiving. You can see the crack a little bit running along here, but for all intents and purposes, much better than what it was before.